No. I'm really excited to hear you talk, Charlotte. We'll do intros and stuff when we start letting people in, and hopefully it'll be really fun for everyone.
Thank you.
Your eyebrows are everything.
Oh,
Are they?
I'm really
excited to hear you talk, Charlotte. We'll do intros and stuff when we start. You might want to put the stream on mute, Charlotte, because I can hear myself talking back.
Mute.
Okay, cool. All right, let's see. Sorry, it's been a bit manic.
That's all
but
right.
We're gonna get there. It's the first talk of the day. I think we'll be fine eventually.
Yeah, I'm gonna let some folk in now.
Cool.
And then I'm gonna try and work out how to do YouTube because I believe we're live.
Cool.
Hi world.
Live somewhere, not sure where.
Charlotte, Colombo, could you give me some intel on like who, if there's any more people in the waiting room, like and stuff? Like if they start incoming.
Yeah, I'll just admit people as and when they appear.
Yeah.
Basically.
Cool. All right. Hi everyone that's in so far. We will let some more people trail in. As it's the first talk of the day, I imagine it's going to kind of pan out like that. I'd appreciate, if possible, you put your cameras on. I think it makes it a lot nicer for us and for the speaker. And yeah, shortly we'll be doing a talk with the lovely Charlotte Manning here. Charlotte Manning is an entertainment reporter at the Daily Express and has been for over a year. Yes. So yeah, I'm really excited to get started. We're streaming live on YouTube for non-ticket holders, and yeah, hopefully it's going to be a really fun talk. I think I'll hand it over to you, Charlotte.
Okay. Right. Hi everyone. So I am going to be talking about my time at the Express. I work as a TV reporter. I've done that for about 1.5 years now. I've made a PowerPoint. I feel a bit like a lecturer today. I haven't really done anything like this. So please do ask questions. It would be really good if you did, because I'll probably forget things when I'm talking. But I'm going to try and explain as much as possible about kind of how I started, like what experience I had beforehand, kind of how I got into this role, and a bit about like what I do every day and like what I'm kind of doing next. So hopefully that will help you. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Right, I'm going to have to like share my screen, I think. Let's see how this goes. No, I'm not allowed to do that apparently. Charlotte, it says you've disabled screen sharing.
I will make you the host. So don't worry. Don't worry about a thing, mate. I am on the case and I am here to sort it out. I'll fix it.
Trust me.
Sounds so sarcastic. Oh, more people coming in. Admit all, hooray. Okay, now just make you the host. Make co-host. Yes, I do. I'll make you a co-host too, obviously, since you're literally the regional officer. Make co-host.
Thank you.
Everyone live just seeing me humiliate myself and my lack of Zoom skills. This is great.
For those just joining, Charlotte is about to give her talk. She's going to do a PowerPoint with us. As that's going on, if any questions pop into your head, please do pop them in the chat and she will answer them after the presentation. Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Cool. Right, I'm going to start. Let's see if I can share my screen now.
Cool.
Cool. There we go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to put it into like play mode somehow. I feel like I haven't used a PowerPoint since I was at uni and I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
I think it's the present button on the like right hand side, strangely enough. like, because the rest is all on the left, and it's like.
Oh yeah, okay, got it.
Okay, thank you everyone for coming, and I'm gonna hand over to Charlotte now, and hopefully it'll be a really interesting, insightful talk.
Thank you. So thank you, Shannon and Charlotte, for letting me do this talk and asking me to do it. Really excited to kind of share kind of some stuff that I've learned in the last kind of, well, probably like 4 or 5 years really, because I'm going to be talking a bit about like student journalism that I've done as well, in the hope that that might help you kind of work out maybe if you want to go towards this area, how to get there. But yeah, I've been at the Express since September 2019. I work on the TV desk, and I'm part of a small team of reporters for the online section. So the first thing is that the kind of online and paper part are kept very separate. So we don't kind of, none of my work is featured in like the physical paper. It's all featured online, which is important to note because there's like lots of differences in how it's kind of produced. So I'll talk a bit about that later. But this is just like a few pictures from stuff that I've been to. I was sort of trying to pad it out a bit with some nice pictures. But this was on the right here. This is the first thing I got to go to. I got to go to like the Soap Awards. I remember being really nervous because I had no idea what I was doing. This was in like my 3rd or 4th week at work. But it was really, really fun. And the other pictures here are like of screenings that I've been to, and I'll talk a bit more about those later and kind of what that involves and how they kind of work. So yeah, but please do kind of ask questions throughout. I'll answer them all at the end, I think. Okay, so I am 23, just turned 23, but I've been at the Express since September 2019. I graduated in the July of 2019. So I always felt like it was a bit lucky that I managed to get a job very, very quickly, because it doesn't happen to a lot of people. So I'm going to talk a bit about that as well. So I've learned a lot since I've been there, and I feel I can give some kind of insight into the entertainment journalism industry, which is a bit different. It's a bit more fun than some other areas. But yeah, and before I got into this job, I did some work experience at the Sunday Times. I've done some work experience at like some PR firms, and I was the editor for my uni's tab, the Tab Norwich, which I miss very much. But I'm also going to go and study for my NCTJ very, very soon, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I want to do that as well. Yeah. So my route into the industry, I always wanted to go into journalism, and I hate kind of saying that because it feels very like cliche, like saying that I always wanted to be a journalist, but I kind of didn't really ever have any other idea of what I wanted to do. I think when I was younger, I was very kind of fascinated by the news. I was kind of interested in like local news, and I always remember like it was something that I was interested in, and I think as you grow up and you realize you can do things that you're actually interested in as a career, that's always really great. But yeah, I didn't the one thing is I've kind of found a lot out about the industry myself, because I never really got sort of told anything about it. It was all very much me searching kind of different resources, like things like the student room and like all those kind of resources you use probably when you apply for uni and stuff like that, and about like careers and how to get into different careers, because I didn't really have any idea. But yeah, I wasn't really sure about doing it, because like I had a lot of sort of like family and teachers that weren't really kind of into it for me. I went and studied politics instead, which was really fun. I think it gave me still like a good gateway into journalism, because I got to do like lots of sort of media modules, and kind of have come at it from a slightly different understanding maybe of kind of like the political landscape and like kind of a lot of stuff that goes on in the UK media. So that's kind of where my background has come from. But yeah, UEA was great in terms of like being able to do student journalism. There's a picture there of me doing like some student radio, which I did for a couple of years with one of my best friends. And this other picture is me doing some PR work experience. I did that for a month between my 2nd and 3rd year. And that was like a beauty PR company in London. And I got to like go to an event and got to help plan with all that kind of stuff, which was really fun. The weirdest thing was I was planning on doing a master's, but I got offered my job kind of in between. So that was, I was going to do a master's in public policy. So I'm quite glad I didn't do that because I didn't really want to do it. So cool. So I'm going to talk a bit about what I do kind of day to day. So first of all, it really differs between the morning and the evening. So each week, me and my team swap between sort of like morning shifts and evening shifts. So it'd be like sort of a half and half split. So the morning shifts start at like 7 o'clock in the morning, finish at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The evening shifts then start at 3 and finish at 11. And we then have an overnight TV reporter who writes kind of more like US stuff, because that's kind of the evening in the US. So that's kind of how that works. So I have to write 6 stories per day. And then I also have to have some kind of like exclusive content each week. So this could be things like interviews with cast members of shows and like famous people, and like roundtables. A lot of these have been conducted via Zoom, like press conferences, like data-led stories about things maybe like, like in reality TV, like seeing the increase of followers and people, and maybe then you could work out who might win a show and things like that. We also kind of have to source stories on shift. So this is kind of sweeping kind of other sites, looking at places like all our competitors, so like Metro, the Daily Mail, The Sun, the Daily Star, the Mirror, and those kind of sites, and kind of like what have they done that we haven't done, and see if it's something that we can fit into our content. And then also we get sent things through like interview quotes from people. A lot of stories I've found like on Twitter, I think people posting stuff. So social media is so key in finding stories. So that's really important. And then the fun bit is I get to watch TV on shift. I watch like a lot of soaps, live TV. Kind of live reality TV is a really big one for us, and we do like a lot of stuff with like Strictly Come Dancing. Dancing on Ice is a thing for us at the moment, which is there's a lot going on with that show right now. So, but there's a few kind of ideas of the kind of stuff I've written in the last couple of days, just to kind of give it's all a little bit, there's quite a big variety basically. Yeah. So here's a few pictures from stuff I've got to do. The first one was like the Strictly Come Dancing like final press conference, which was really fun. I'm like a massive fan of the show myself, so it was like one of those things that was really cool. I got to interview Paddy McGuinness and Chris Harris from Top Gear last year. Went to like the Leicester Square Odeon for like a proper red carpet thing, which was quite fun. And the other one is from an EastEnders like press day for their 35th anniversary, which was last February, I think, which feels like a couple of months ago, but it's all been a bit weird. So right. So why entertainment journalism? So I think it's really great because I've always been really interested in popular culture. And if anyone follows me on Twitter, you'll probably know that because I go on about it all the time. So I think the main thing from that is like try and kind of go towards areas that you're interested in yourself. Like don't kind of put pressure on yourself to go into areas just because you think maybe they have more authority or because you think they're seen as like better. I think there's a lot of kind of, I don't know, sometimes there's a bit of like snobbiness towards entertainment journalism in terms of like people think, oh, well, why is this important? Like, who cares about that? And it's like, well, lots of people do. Like, you need the light relief sometimes. I think in the news, it's really important right now more than ever. Also, I've got to meet some really cool people. I've got to go sort of screenings of new shows. I'm going to like red carpets and stuff, and go to events. Which is obviously a fun part of the job. And it's always really changeable. Like it's not too kind of dramatic and serious, which I think I would find too hard potentially. I don't really know. But it would be more challenging. But it's so relevant to every part of life as well, because we cover things like news programs, we cover all the biggest shows, and often, there's a lot of like really famous guests on them saying like quite interesting things, and it's probably more relevant than maybe you even think. So yeah. Okay, so I wanted to give like a really honest overview in terms of like maybe things that are good and things that are not so good about this kind of role, and see like, so you can maybe get a better idea if it's suited for you. So I'm going to try and be a bit more generalized than just my current job, but I will obviously am referring to what I do right now. So the good thing is kind of getting to interview, meet lots of people within the industry, kind of doing stuff I never thought I would be doing at the age of 23. It's still like, I feel very lucky to be able to do what I do. I feel like I get to find out a lot about what happens before other people do. I get to like, I can watch series as like in advance, and like I get like previews on things like Netflix and stuff like that, which is like obviously quite fun. And I'm in like a really nice young team of people that are really sort of like passionate about what they do. And also in terms of entertainment as an area that I'm interested in, like I get to write about stuff I actually care about and would probably read myself. So that's always really, really good. The difficult things I found within my job, so I've done lots of shift work, which can be very, very challenging. When I started my job, I moved down to London sort of very, very quickly. I was living with my grandparents for about 4 or 5 months. It wasn't really ideal in terms of like being able to socialize, because I was kind of working Wednesday to Sunday, like evening shifts. So I didn't really get much time to see people. And that was really hard. So I think about that. If you get offered shift work, like, is it going to fit into your life? Does it suit who you are right now and what you're doing? It has kind of worked out for me in the end, but I think at the start I found it quite hard to kind of adjust to that. Obviously, sometimes this is more applicable to online stuff, but I have had like kind of people calling me out for things that are very like minor things, or like, because our stuff gets put on Facebook, sometimes there's like horrible comments underneath being like, oh, who cares about this, blah 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 blah, and you're like, I didn't put this here, but obviously some people do because you're reading it and you've read to the end and commented on it. So that's something you have to get over very, very quickly. But I mean, it's not a massive thing. It's just something you kind of need to be aware of, I think. It is obviously quite fast paced because of the online aspect. So it's kind of like a constant stream of news, rather than like maybe if you worked for a Sunday paper, you're kind of slowly building up stories throughout the week, whereas we kind of are doing stuff on a constant basis. So that's quite like, there's not really much room to breathe sometimes. And you don't really get to do sort of like long reads or any kind of investigative stuff, which you would maybe in a traditional reporter role. But yeah, right. So I'm going to try and give a bit of advice that I've kind of learned on like trying to get into the industry, and like maybe what you could do now to kind of start kind of sowing the seeds as well. Like obviously you're all writing for like student publications, which is the best way to start anyway. But I'd say the one thing that like the first thing that came to my mind was like, don't put pressure on yourself to find a niche in journalism, because I think there's so much talk of that. And people are like, oh, I can't find my niche, I don't know what I want to do. I think like when you're at uni and you can write for all these different sections in like your student newspaper, like try and write for as many as possible. I think it's really good to give yourself a varied amount of content, and like show that you can write about different things is actually a massive skill. I think if you really narrow yourself, sometimes it actually can work against you. So don't kind of think, oh, I don't know exactly what I want to write about. Like just try different things and see like maybe what you like the most, more than pressurizing yourself. Also, like don't try and do too much while you're at uni, because I think when I look back to what I was kind of doing in my final year, I was kind of this is more about like extracurricular stuff. So I was kind of like the president of a society, then I was running like the tab, and then I was working part-time, and I was like in a long distance relationship, and I had all these different things going on. But I think sometimes you need to step back and maybe get rid of one of the things, or like try and just like cut down maybe how long you're working, or like just give yourself space to breathe. Like make sure you're not using all your free time to do other stuff. Like take some time for yourself as well is really, really important. Also, like if you want something, like go and get it. Like that's always been my tactic, like in terms of like getting work experience, I've often just like approached kind of people myself, and it has sometimes worked. And I don't think you should be scared of doing that, because the worst thing that someone's kind of going to say is no, or they're going to like blank you, which happens a lot in this industry. So you have to be prepared for that anyway. But yeah, try things, contact editors of papers that you like local papers, kind of get in touch with people online. Don't DM people though, because a lot of people don't like that. And that's a bit of sometimes that can be a breach for people. But like email people, you know, that you want to work with, or if you're trying to go into freelance work, maybe ask people for advice that you know that do it already. It's just use the resources you have available. It's like they're great. Also, don't limit yourself to grad schemes in terms of like trying to get onto grad schemes to get into journalism. Like my role was not a grad scheme role, it was just a general reporter role. And I think that's really, really worked in my favour as well, because a lot of grad schemes are very, very long-winded. They can be like up to 2 years long. And a lot of people don't stay in jobs for that long when they're young as well. Like the things are very changeable, and maybe you suddenly realise you want to do something else. So give yourself maybe that freedom of not trying to get onto a grad scheme. Obviously they're great, but like they're so competitive. So you might be up against like hundreds of other people, whereas for a normal role you might only be up against like 20 to 30 other people. So you've got much more of a chance of getting a normal role. Yeah, kind of what I've said already, but don't be shy to approach publications and editors that you want to work with. A lot of them are really nice and obviously were once in your position themselves. And also like try and learn how to use online softwares and things like that, like Photoshop. Like before I started working, I'd never used Photoshop before, but it's actually quite straightforward a lot of the time. And I kind of wish I'd done a little bit before and like kind of tried to play around with it, because if it's something that you can list as something you can already do, then they don't have to train you in that role, where they might have to train somebody else to do it, even if they've got more experience elsewhere. So just think about maybe like what can you do in terms of learning like how to use stuff yourself. And there's lots of guides on like YouTube and like for programs like that. So that's a good idea, I think. I feel like I've talked really, really fast. So I have a couple of other things. So that picture, I was like going through work photos this morning that I could find on like my Instagram stories, because my phone isn't that old. So that's me when I did work experience at the Times. Obviously took a photo in the loo, because that's kind of what you do, isn't it? So in terms of like trying to reach out to people, a lot of national publications, everyone has the same email address format. So if you can't find somebody's specific email address, but maybe you have their colleagues, it'll probably be exactly the same format. It's always worth a try anyway. Also a really big one, I think, is like share all of your work. I remember when I was a student journalist, initially I was like very reluctant to share all my work. I think I was worried about people telling me it was bad, even though I don't think anyone would have done that. But you know, if you speak to someone specific, tag them in it. If you speak to any sort of local, national organisations or people of interest, tag all those people in your posts, and a lot of the time they will interact with it themselves. And that's really good in terms of like getting yourself more exposure and like maybe getting new followings and like just maybe helping build up stuff for the future as well. Also, like if you like someone else's work, like tell them and make sure to interact with other people online. Like if you read someone's article that they've shared on Twitter and like you thought it was really funny or you really enjoyed it, like just tell them, because everyone appreciates like good feedback, and I think that's really, really important. Also set up a portfolio of your work. Muckrack is like really, really easy and straightforward to use, because a lot of the time it puts your work on there automatically. But yeah, sometimes some people invest in like getting their own sites, and like domain names can be very, very cheap if that's something you wanted to do. I think I've got a picture of my Muckrack on here. Yeah, there we go, just so you can see it. And I had to like verify it through my Twitter account, I think. So it's very, very straightforward. I think, is that it? Oh, okay, one more slide. Yeah, so more in terms of like trying to get yourself out there and get experience. If you do write for anywhere that's not kind of something you're already involved with, always give them like your social media handles and like a bit about yourself if they don't ask for it, because they kind of owe it to you to do that. I think like if you've given your time to write for somewhere, the least they can kind of do is like try and help you back. Also, like some of my friends who've kind of been in freelance work and kind of like entertainment as well, have literally just done call outs on Twitter for like freelance shifts and like extra work, and a lot of the time it does actually work, so like that can be good as well. Also, like take any experience that you can get, but don't try and not to do unpaid things. I really like have a massive thing that I don't think people should be doing unpaid internships. Like I know that's a massive problem within the industry. Like if it's work experience, it should only really last about 2 weeks for being unpaid. I did an internship with a PR firm for about a month. They wanted me to stay for longer, but I had to go back to uni. And they only paid me half of my expenses, which I think was really bad because I was traveling up to London every day. And I was doing very much employee work for them that they would have paid someone else to do. So do like know what kind of your rights are and what you're entitled to. I think that's really, really important. Just make sure you're not getting taken advantage of at all if you can avoid it. But do like volunteer for organisations if they offer stuff that suits you as well. That stuff can be really good. There's lots of like local radio that's like on a volunteer basis. Lots of volunteer organisations maybe have like social media content based work that's maybe a couple of hours a week, a few hours a week. Like that's great, but just don't let kind of people rip you off is what I'm trying to say, because I think that's really important. Yeah, that's kind of it, I think. I feel like I've spoken very, very fast and I feel like I've missed out a lot of stuff. So please do ask me questions if you have any. And I really want to answer them all. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. I think that was brilliant. I think it was really insightful. Anyone has any questions, do pop them in the chat. I think that would be a really useful way of doing it instead of kind of muting and unmuting and stuff. I have a question. It's a little bit about what we discussed about the Reach application process, right?
Yeah.
There's so many opportunities at the moment for incoming journalists at Reach. There was My London hiring like 13 new reporters. There are people joining your team. You said like broadly the kind of application process. For those that don't know, Reach encompasses the Mirror, the Star, the Express, a lot of magazines and a lot of kind of regional titles.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of advice for anyone that might be looking to apply for like an entry-level role at Reach as you did?
Yeah, so I think I've completely forgot to talk about the interview process, which I was going to do. So I'll talk about that now. But in terms of like applying for the role, it was a very straightforward application. A lot of roles ask you to apply with like a cover letter and loads and like an example of all these different things and like all these different questions they want you to answer. And I remember like looking at something for Channel 4 recently and I was like, I'm not doing that. It's too much work just for an application. I might never hear back from you. But that was just my opinion on it. But yeah, it was a very standard kind of job application process, just all online. I put in my CV, a bit about why I was interested in the role, but it was like within the application itself. So I didn't have to write like a proper cover letter because I hate writing cover letters. I know it sounds really, really bad, but I'm not very good at writing them. So if I can avoid it, I try to as much as possible. But I think maybe do kind of write a cover letter and have a standard kind of thing that you can change and whenever, to apply for different places. So you've got that sort of template. And also like get people to read over your work with things like that. Get like your friends to kind of look over cover letters or your CVs. Like me and my friends do that a lot, so we can maybe spot things that they haven't spotted. I think that's really, really helpful. But in terms of the process, like I remember I applied in about June, but I didn't hear back until about August. So I kind of had forgotten about the role anyway. but yeah, I went in for an interview, had an interview with the person who's my editor now and the showbiz editor, who are both really, really lovely. And they kind of just asked me some very sort of standard interview questions about like what my experience was already, and some kind of scenario based questions, just a bit about why I was interested in the role in particular. And then after that, I had to do like a writing task, like an article writing task. And I was given a sort of brief of what they wanted. And then that was it really. So I managed to get it after that. Yeah, so it's quite straightforward. I think Reach tend to be really good in terms of application process is quite straightforward. And they want young people to apply for them. Like they want young talent, and they want like people who are passionate about the industry more necessarily than like people who are really, really, really qualified and know everything. And like I think they want people to who are kind of starting out but have that kind of like interest and like want to grow within their career. And I think that's what they kind of are doing, like kind of what you were saying in My London, like I think they literally just hired about maybe like 15 new people or something, like reporters. And like that's like one of Reach's publications, and they do loads of like the local ones as well. And I think they're expanding on that this year as well, like more titles. So yeah, definitely keep a lookout for that for sure.
Well, we've got some questions coming in on the chat. The first one was from Simone, and I think that she's followed up on that. I think it cut off too short. She said, do you have any advice for somebody who's thinking of getting into journalism through starting a master's degree and has never studied journalism before?
Okay, so yeah, so I haven't studied journalism at all. So I kind of got into it very much through student media. And I think that's the most important thing that you can do, because that's how you demonstrate that you can write. I would just say like take all the opportunities that you get. Try and get involved as much as possible with like maybe even like local publications if you can. Maybe try and get some experience at a local publication. I don't know, are they saying they want to do a master's in journalism or just in general?
Yeah, Simone's unmuted. Hi.
Hi, sorry. Yes, sorry, I'll explain my sort of situation. Okay. It's a little bit different. I'm actually a teacher, but at the University of Murcia, which is a university in Spain, and I'm looking at the possibility of just now, making a change in my career. So yeah, the idea is perhaps studying a master's in research journalism. So basically, it's kind of more of a general question, but just for somebody starting out with really not much of an idea, is there any sort of preliminary questions that you asked yourself, sort of things that you thought right at the beginning of your journey, your route into journalism?
I think I probably questioned a couple of times whether I wanted to do it, because the things you hear when you're younger are so much like, oh, it's really hard to get into, it's very stressful, and all these different things, which is true. Like it is possible to do it if you want it enough, I think. But I also want to stress that I don't think you should have to overwork yourself to try and get into it. That's really, really important. I think with some kind of younger freelancers and stuff I've noticed recently, there seems to be this kind of emerging culture that's really, really competitive, when it doesn't really need to be. And I think there's room for everybody in the industry, and lots of publications want new voices. Kind of there's some really, really good newsletters as well. So there's the Journo Resources website, which is really great. That has loads of freelance opportunities, lists of jobs, and contacts and pitching guidelines and things like that, which are really, really helpful. And they send out a weekly newsletter. And also there is, what's the other really good one? I can't remember. But there's a couple of really good kind of newsletters and stuff that you can sign up to with their own sites, full of advice and information. So stuff like that's really helped me, I think, more than kind of some other stuff might do. But I think just don't put too much pressure on yourself to kind of get everything right straight away. I think the thing that I've felt is sometimes I have a tendency to think, oh, I'm not doing as well as I should be, or I'm not doing good enough, and then I realise I've only been doing it for a year and a half properly, and you're still very early on into your career. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
I also think, Charlotte, it might be a good opportunity to tie in the NCTJ, because I think a big question for a lot of people wanting to break in is maybe whether to do a master's or to do an NCTJ in something journalism related.
Yeah, so I think I would probably say, like, if I was staying maybe within what I was doing forever and wanted to stay, I think this is the thing as well I wanted to touch on, is like, you can have such a good career in tabloid journalism, and I've seen so many people like discount it and say, oh, I'm never gonna work for a tabloid, purely because like maybe they don't agree with the views of the paper. And I think, but the thing is, you're never going to agree with the views that every paper has. Like, you're never gonna align with everything. I think that's really important. But yeah, so I didn't need it. But I think if you're looking to go more into local journalism, which I think I would like to do in the future, then a lot of the time you do need an NCTJ, and it teaches you things like shorthand and stuff, which I have no idea about. I've never learned. And I think sometimes they fund it for people, if like through like diversity funds and stuff like that. But mine is like self-funded. That's the thing, like working has managed, I've been able to save up money and things like that. But I would say probably it's not necessary to do a master's, I don't think. Like, I would say, I don't know, it's a really difficult one. I think there's such an argument about whether to do a master's or whether to do an NCTJ. I think from a cost perspective, maybe a master's could work out better as long as it's accredited by the NCTJ, because that's the most important part. Because obviously then it's kind of like you're still a student and you're getting a loan to do it. But mine is like a fast track course, so I'll be done by the summer, and that for me was like the thing that is going to work for me best, I think, because I just wanted to get it kind of out the way and done as soon as possible. But I still don't think you need one. Like, I don't think it's a necessity. Like, I could carry on in my role and I wouldn't have needed one. And then like, this is why like Reach is good, because I could have probably moved around within the company, and like there's so many opportunities for like internal employment. And some places will pay for your NCTJ as like a trainee journalist as well. So like maybe look for those kind of opportunities as they come up, like at local papers and things like that. But yeah.
Thank you, Simone. We've got another one in from someone nameless that says, do you ever have to write original stories, and where do you source your own contacts?
Yeah, so kind of what I was saying about doing things like interviews, that's kind of the main part of getting like original stuff, is via quotes from people. But like a lot of the stuff kind of is not shared between publications, but we're all reporting on like very similar things. But I think a big part of what we're trying to do at the moment is trying to work out what our competitors are not doing and like focus on those things more, and then that's where you get your original content from. But it's trying to like work and get like PR contacts, and like gradually as you build up, you get more contacts in, and it's just about building a good relationship with people as well. Like, it's so like easy to like ignore emails and stuff, or like maybe like discount opportunities because you don't really know a lot about the person they want you to speak to, or like you think maybe like it's not good enough or whatever. I don't know what people think, but I think just take kind of every opportunity that comes to you, and if someone's like maybe emailed you with an opportunity that's not really relevant, direct them to people that are relevant within your company as well. Like, I do that. Sometimes I get people in touch with me for stuff that's more applicable maybe to like lifestyle or like health or stuff like that, because those things really work, and then people will do that for you, or they'll remember you, and that's how you build up a good relationship with people, I think. And it's just about like just being nice to people as well is really, really important. Like, I don't think I can stress that enough. Just be kind on like by email and to people you're interviewing, and yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think we've got a couple more. Bronwyn says, what's been your favourite piece to write / piece of showbiz news that you've reported on?
Oh, I remember going. So we share an office with, not an office, but we share like a desk with the showbiz team. So we've always worked very, very closely with them. And I remember getting into work on the day like Wagatha Christie happened. And it's probably one of my favorite things. So I wasn't really doing anything on it myself, but it's just one of those things that like we were all talking about the whole day, and it was like a huge thing. That was just funny. I think anything where I've got to kind of go to events has been really, really fun. And got to talk to people on the phone. I've been doing like the exit interviews for The Masked Singer recently. I don't know if anyone's watched that show. If you haven't, it's basically famous people hiding behind these really weird costumes, and they have to sing, and hopefully Rita Ora doesn't guess who they are, basically. She's but yeah, so that was fun. So I got to talk to like Sophie Ellis-Bextor, who is a favourite of mine, and some other people recently, like Glenn Hoddle, which was really random. But yeah, there's been so much variation. And I think like, yeah, I don't know in terms of like big news days, but like sometimes things happen and there's just like a massive buzz, like because you're like, oh, this is like our kind of thing, like because it doesn't happen very often within TV. It's like a massive TV story. I think last year was really difficult because it was all like reporting on this show's been cancelled, this show's been cancelled, or this show's been like postponed in filming, and then but then for them all to like come back was obviously really nice, and like you feel really good about that. So yeah.
Brilliant. I think we've got one more before we wrap up, which is, will you do your NCTJ alongside your current job?
So I'm not, because mine's like a full-time course, but I could have done it sort of part-time and still kind of worked at my role now. But for me, it was just like a personal decision that I wanted to try and, because of the way I kind of know that I'm not very good at studying, and I wanted to try and get it all done together, so I had that constant like momentum and flow of like being able to do it and get it finished, because I didn't really want it to go on and on and on, like, but I could have done it with alongside my job or alongside another job. Like that was purely my own decision to do that. And I think a lot of people would have, like I know people that work part-time and do it part-time and stuff like that. But I am like going to try and sort of do like freelance work alongside it, and like I still want to be working when I can. But I think, yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to do it like that.
Brilliant. Because yeah, for those that don't know, I think part-time ones, I think you're committed to do an evening and a weekend day, aren't you?
Yeah.
And then the full-time one is like school almost again. I remember mine was at least. It's like 9 to 5, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's like Monday to Thursday, and then you have a placement day on the Friday. But then you get your weekends off, and I haven't had weekends off for so long, like properly. So just that was too much to not do, I think.
Yeah. And when do you start?
In mid-March.
Okay, amazing. Well, best of luck. And if anyone doesn't have any further questions, I think we're good to wrap this up. Thank you so much for coming. I think it's been really useful, and I hope it's been useful to everyone else in attendance. The next talk of today is with Mark de Ferrer of Euronews and BBC Sport, and that will be at 3:00. So we've got a bit of a break now for some food or whatever, and I hope to see the rest of you guys there. Yeah, thank you very much, Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay, brilliant.
Smashed it. Now to